I was so proud of the look I had. It still wasn't enough, so I've decided that I'm officially done with competitive bodybuilding.
And so Mike Israetel writes in his comments, the hand clap, the bowing to Eric. Perhaps Mike Israetel should one day follow in Eric's footsteps. Coach Greg, and in today's video, did Eric Janicki win his IFBB Pro card? As you know, Eric Janicki is part of HDLT Supplements, but just because he's a friend, just because I like the guy, doesn't mean I'm not going to give you the honest truth. If you see Eric in person, you're going to think, there's no way that guy's not a pro. The guy's enormous. Huge. Guy's shredded, looks incredible. But does he not only have what it takes to become an IB pro, but a winning pro at that?
Anything you guys want in life, if you set your mind to it and you put it in your mind, that's going to happen.
Just because you want something, just because you're the hardest worker in the room, just because you try your best, doesn't mean that that thing that you really want, it's going to happen. And so if your goal is to get your dream physique, Eric's dream physique is to be at the Mr. Olympia. Just because you really want it, that you train the best, you train the hardest, and use the world's best supplements, HDLT supplements, doesn't mean that your dream is going to happen. Guys like Mike Israetel, they need to learn from Eric Janicki. Mike competed in his last pro qualifier, got 6th. Dream to be an IB pro. But we've heard him speak about all the horrible side effects that steroids have caused, and so he's decided to temporarily retire for a little bit. Should be retired for life, but hey, it's his body, it's his own decision. Eric Janicki in the hand, well, let's see what happens.
So it's like my second to last day of depletion, and I thought I was lean for Vancouver, but I don't think I was, because now it's like a whole nother level of conditioning.
Eric, throughout the contest prep, was sending me photos, and I was telling him, you need to get leaner. At 6 weeks out, he says, what I'm going to do is I'm going to diet to about 3 weeks out, and I'm going to just kind of maintain, I'm going to keep that fullness, I'm going to look incredible. I said, at 3 weeks out, you're going to have to diet even harder. You're going to suffer like you've never suffered before. And what happened? He showed up in Vancouver and got 2nd place, and why? He wasn't lean enough. He had the muscle, he had the aesthetics, but wasn't hard enough to dethrone the champion. And so Mike Israetel, he blamed it on his tan. If I would have had a better tan, could have won the pro cards on. It's not the tan. You got to diet harder than you've ever dieted before. It is a freaking nightmare. And until you've dieted to sub 5% body fat, oh, you've been lean, you've had a 6-pack, that's nothing. It's way harder to be an IFBB Pro bodybuilder. And so we had a guy who made an announcement, an IFBB Pro in classic physique. I'm sick of suffering. I'm moving up to open. I have to fast, I have to go in a calorie deficit, I have to diet. You know, I have such a hard time making weight, and so I'm now done with suffering. I'm moving up to the open class. He thinks he's done suffering, as if competing as an open class bodybuilder is any easier. You're gonna have to use more steroids, and you're still gonna have to come in just as lean. Being an open class bodybuilder doesn't mean you just come in full. You know, diet is hard. Oh, guys in classic, they have to diet. Open class is just about getting as big as possible. It's not. No matter who you are, no matter what category, what level you're at, bodybuilding, it's all about suffering. We saw the Trend Twins. Were they lean enough? Of course not. It is a nightmare to show up at sub 5% body fat and go for your RP Pro card. And so Eric Janicki competed and got 2nd. But guess what he did? He lowered the calories by 1,800 calories a day, doing an hour and a half of cardio, doing everything to get leaner, and dropped 4 to 5 pounds of body fat in those 2 weeks to show up at his best. But was it enough?
Down like another 5-6 pounds off my previous low, so in the mid to high 240s, which for me I thought it was not gonna happen. But
and so clearly he's not even dehydrated at this point. You see striations in the glutes, the quads, the shreds. The guy looks like an animal. Incredible. But is this lean enough? I'm telling you, no matter how lean you get in bodybuilding, you can always be a little bit leaner. Rare does anyone show up truly peeled, dialed to the bone, where they are undeniable. It's a nightmare, but is it in fact worth it?
I will be 100% honest, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
In his life, guy has twin babies. I'm not trying to exaggerate. You think I'm just blowing smoke up your ass saying, oh, bodybuilding is so hard. Listen to his story. Listen to how he describes it. And so unless this is your passion, your dream, unless you really need this, bodybuilding, it's not the sport for you. It's like Ronnie Coleman once said, everyone want to be a bodybuilder, but no one want to lift any heavy ass weights. Nothing, and I mean nothing could be further from the truth.
Everybody want to be a bodybuilder. That's right. So nobody will lift this heavy ass weight.
Everyone want to lift heavy ass weights. What people don't want to do is lift under strict control, lighten the weights, use time under tension, and eat in a calorie deficit. To main game, to not bulk all the time, to always be healthy, and to not abuse steroids. That's what people want to do. They want to blast hell gear, go on bulks, get huge, and act like, oh, I'm an open class bodybuilder, and that means I just get to do what I want to be huge and win bodybuilding competitions. It's not that simple.
Like, you're not even like thinking about what's like an hour ahead of you or goals or anything like that. You're just like basically trying to survive.
And so think of it. He can barely get through 15 minutes at a time. Can't think, what am I going to do in an hour? Can barely get through 15 minutes. Having to take timeouts in the bathroom, put his head down, having to sit differently so that it's easier to stand up. His life, it's a living hell. And all for an IPB Pro card.
You know, a couple of days ago, I was doing cardio. Right around like 25 minutes, and it's been happening to me. I'll start to feel it come on, like a little bit of hypo.
And so think of it. It's no different than being a diabetic. He needs to rush into an emergency, get some sugar. Guy's going hypo. He's about to pass out. All for bodybuilding. And y'all think it's as a healthy sport.
People that were like really meant to do it, like I feel like I have a very athletic build, but I don't know if I have like that like true bodybuilder build where you see a guy, you're like tiny joints.
Exactly. There's a big difference between a guy like Derek Lunsford or Chris Bumstead. These guys are at the pinnacle. They're Mr. Olympia champions. There's a big difference between guys like that and Eric Janicki. Eric Janicki in a tank top, if you see this guy, you're going to be like, I don't know what I'm seeing. Is this a real human being? Are people actually built like that? But in comparison to Derek Lunsford or Chris Bumstead, they're at another level.
And I feel like I'm almost like kind of fitting a square peg in a round hole. And while I love it, and I don't think you necessarily have to have like top tier genetics to like perform well.
If Eric Janicki is struggling to get a pro card, what about the Trend Twins? What about Mike Israetel? Mike Israetel and the Trend Twins are so far below a guy like Eric Janicki in terms of the size, the muscularity, the conditioning. And yet these guys, they want a pro card. But for what? And why? Why would I take years off my life, abuse performance-enhancing drugs to get this thing called a pro card when you don't need this thing? Some people are saying, I need this pro card. It's kind of like having a PhD. Then people will hire me. It's in order to get a job so I can perhaps coach people, make enough money to survive. These guys are already rich. The Trend Twins, Mike Israetel, these guys are rich beyond most people's wildest dreams. And so why do they need a pro card? I'm telling you, they don't.
That's why I decided that this year, if I don't get it at USA's, like, I'm at peace with it. Like, I can really truly say, like, I gutted for this. I probably wanted to quit.
He has realistic goals and realistic expectations. If he can't win at the amateur level, what chance would he have to be an amazing pro? Could he, in fact, lose his competition, perhaps get second or third place and come back and win next year? For sure. Sure he could. But is he going to be then an amazing pro? You have to dominate at the amateur scene in order to be an amazing pro after that. If you're barely scraping by, you're going to be a low-level pro.
If I know that I gave this everything and I show up and I try to win as best as I can be at peace with that for the rest of my life.
And so he's not showing up at this show to barely scrape by. He wants to show up and make it obvious. This guy, he's a problem. And so looking at this physique, as he goes through the poses, I'm thinking, this guy looks ridiculous. I'm thinking, this guy has a really good shot at winning.
Like, what I came down to is like, all right, let's do USA's. Let's not be quitter. Let's see what I can do in 2 weeks. Let's see how hard I can suffer.
And so he knows he wasn't in tip-top shape in Vancouver. He knows this. And so he says, I'm not quitting right now. I'm going to put in 2 weeks extra, harder than last time. Going to give it my all. Then I'll show up. And if I then don't win, I'll know, hey, it comes down to genetics. Maybe my waist isn't small enough, but I'm going to find out. In comparison, Mike Israetel, he competed, said he didn't have enough of a tan, and he had a competition in 2 weeks and decided, I'm going to stop. If I were Mike, I would have said, look, this is it. I've given myself 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks to get in my all-time best. I'm going to get Coach Greg's cookbook. I'm going to eat in a calorie deficit, not a small one. He was eating over 3,000 calories. He's going to eat like Eric, 1,800 calories. I'm going to start doing cardio. 2 hours a day. I'm going to show up peeled peeled to the bone. Gonna break the DEXA scan. It's gonna read 0% body fat. I know I'm exaggerating. It can't be 0%. It's gonna be negative 0.33%, like freaking Ronnie Coleman.
0.33 was dipped underwater.
Then, if he doesn't win his pro card, he can say to himself, I gave it my all. I did everything. My best days were behind me in terms of my physique. And so I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. But rather than that, he decided to blame it on his tan and said, I'm going to now take a little bit of a break. I'm going to go on lower doses. And then a couple years from now, I'm going to come back, make my return. I don't know why I can't get through to him. Perhaps he's not watching my videos. Perhaps y'all are going to just hate me for saying this. But here's the thing. Mike Israetel does not have the genetics of an IFBB pro. He has great genetics for putting on muscle, but he doesn't quite have the shape. And so does Eric Janicki have the shape.
If I can go out there and be confident that I am ready, because like in Van, I was like, I think deep down I knew I wasn't quite there.
And so here's the thing. In Vancouver, as he stated many times now, he knew he wasn't ready. Deep down, he knew he hadn't prepared. And nothing hurts worse. It's okay to lose knowing you gave your best because after all, you can't affect the judges' decisions and you can't affect the other people you're competing against. If there's a freak that shows up, the reincarnation of Chris Bumstead, and you lose, hey, you gave it your best. You put in everything. But if you show up and you knew you had 4 or 5 pounds extra fat to lose, perhaps you're competing at 6% body fat when it should have been 4, you know that you could have done better. And nothing feels worse than knowing you did not give it your best. And so for this competition, he gave it everything. And the moment of truth has arrived, the top call out. Eric is being compared with the best of the best on stage. And so the first thing I see, the man to his left, this black guy with the blue trunks, he has a smaller waist. Eric clearly outsizes him, has more muscle, but he has a smaller waist. It gives him the illusion of perhaps a little bit more size. The guy's legs, they flare up more than Eric's, and so from the front, I'm giving it to him. If Eric had wider, broader shoulders and a smaller waist, he would be at an advantage. But Eric's clavicles, they're not very wide. Guy like Derek Lunsford, his clavicles are so freaking wide, they look like a barn door. It makes no sense. Coupled with the very minuscule waist, makes him look unbeatable. And so he is. He's literally the Mr. Olympia champion. And so sometimes it just comes down to your genetics. And so you can see front double bicep. Guys clearly watch Coach Ray videos. Notice the biceps are higher than the delt. Eric Janicki, on the other hand, a little bit lower. Not quite as impressive. Elbows were up a little bit higher. It would look more impressive, would give him more of a V taper. Eric is a lot taller, but he does have very long tibias. That is the bone in the lower half of the leg, and it's why Coach Greg is so short. I have a long torso. Unfortunately, I have the lower half of a man a lot shorter, in particular my tibia. Eric Janicki has long lower legs, and it's making it a lot harder for him to look big because of the length of the bones in his legs. He doesn't have the same frame, the genetics to work with, as the man standing next to him. And so in my opinion, he's clearly ahead of Eric. You can hate me, you can write in the comment section, rigged. You should definitely have placed higher, man. I hate to see that you're not going to compete anymore. I used to be a judge, and a good one at that. And notice how I'm not biased. I'm friends with Eric, and does it look like I speak any different? Whether I'm friends with you or that I don't like you, I'm going to give you my honest, unbiased opinion. And I'm telling you, Eric is not beating this man. I don't want to say that Eric should have won. It'd feel much better to say, Eric, you were ripped off. I watched the show and I think you had it. You deserve first place, but the truth is he didn't. And so he says, I hate to see that you're not going to compete anymore. I don't. I want Eric to be around for years, decades. I don't want to see him take years and decades off his life having to abuse performance-enhancing drugs. Thinking, oh, I didn't win this year. I know what I'll do. I'll double the doses. I'm going to abuse growth hormone, testosterone, tren, insulin, med, halo, you name it. I'm taking it. I want a pro card. Was that be what you want? It's like watching a train wreck. I'd rather see Eric retire if he doesn't win the competition and move on with his health. And so from the side, look at Eric's upper body. Eric's body has the conditioning, the chest, he has more obliques, he appears tighter. And so from the side, I could argue that Eric does in fact win this pose. He appears to be leaner than the man standing next to him. However, when you look at the quads, it doesn't bow out. he doesn't appear to have all that much size, despite the fact he's an animal. Despite the fact that he's a monster, he's close to 250 pounds. It appears that he needs more size. His legs, the quads, they're not sweeping to the sides. The calves don't appear all that large. But he does have great conditioning. He does have great aesthetics for being a man of this height. And so from the rear, you can see Eric does have some hamstrings popping, not a lot, and he does have some glute striations. He's not peeled to the bone, so to speak. He's ripped, he's shredded, but he could in fact be a little bit leaner. Now, what's hurting Eric here, it's the fact that his shoulders are not all that wide. He doesn't have very wide clavicles, and his waist is not all that small. And so he doesn't have that illusion of having a V taper. His back is a little bit more square, kind of like a rectangle. In comparison, the man to his left, he has more lats that pop out and a smaller waist. And so the judges, they're going to notice that. And so although I think that Eric is perhaps a little bit leaner than him, I'm still giving the edge to the man to the left. And so here's the thing. If Eric were born with perhaps 1 inch wider clavicles on each side, he would be an IFBB pro. It's just really hurting him that his shoulders aren't extra wide. Could he in fact keep training harder last time and keep getting bigger shoulders? Of course he could. Eventually, he may in fact get that size, but at what cost? Certainly a lot easier to already have very wide shoulders, for example, Chris Bumstead, and once you put a little bit of muscle, you look like an animal. It's amazing. Chris Bumstead at 215 pounds would beat Eric Janicki, and Eric is 250. And why is that? I'll tell you why. Genetics, shape. Chris Bumstead's weight is tiny. And his shoulders are wider than friggin' last time. And so even with minimal muscle, Chris is still gonna look incredible. And so in the back double bicep itself, look at the detail. He has a lot of muscle, bumps, crevices everywhere. But unfortunately, the waist is not all that small. If Eric had Chris's waistline, the small waist, he'd easily turn pro. It'd be no question. He has the detail, he has the bumps, everything looks amazing. But he doesn't have the V shape. Now remember, I've been comparing him to the man on his left, but that's not the only guy in this competition. There's also the man to his left. These guys even leaner than Eric. Some perhaps even bigger. And so at the highest level, this is what you're going to be competing with. Several guys with genetics perhaps equal or better than even Eric Janicki. And so what you see here is the top 6 call out. What you're looking for is to be in the center. And so what they do is they put the best athletes in the center and the athletes who are not going to place to the sides. And so Eric is in the 6th or 5th place position. Next to him would be 4th and 3rd place. And in the center, 1st and 2nd. And so when you look at the 2 gentlemen in the center, you can see the conditioning, the size of the quads, the detail. You can see how wide it is they have their shoulders. They just have the wider shoulders and the smaller waist and perhaps a bit leaner. The guy in red in particular, look at the size of the quads. They're crazy. Eric Janicki, who's a lot taller on the edges, the quads, they don't seem to have the same pop. Perhaps he could have been sharper, a bit more dehydrated, a little bit leaner. But remember, he's going for the fullness. He has the size, and he doesn't want to sacrifice the fullness in order to get that level of detail. But the winner, he did. He has both the size and he has the conditioning. He perhaps doesn't have the largest quads. He is lacking in size of the quads, but overall, you can see that grainy, hard muscularity combined with that much size, very hard to overlook. And so from the side, look at the guy in the middle. Although his quads didn't appear that great from the front, look at the detail from the side, the conditioning. Now, from the front, flexing the abs, the eyes are drawn to Eric. The abs look better, the physique looks better, everything technically overall looks better. But remember, Eric looks more like a cover model of a magazine and not quite as much as a Mr. Olympia champion. He has a great look, the chest, the abs, and so on, but he just doesn't quite measure up in terms of bodybuilding. The winner, he's just shredded. He's perhaps 4% body fat. He's looking incredible. And so as I look at all these physiques, if I had to pick one physique to have, it'd be Eric. I would want to look like Eric. I'd rather look like Eric than the other men. Does that mean Eric should win? It doesn't work like that.
I was just talking to my buddy about the judging. It's weird. I did not have people placing where they placed. Well, the only thing that the guy in the middle, he's just peeled out.
Kirk! It's not just about aesthetics. It's not about who looks the best, who's the most aesthetic. peeled out of his Turk mind. That's bodybuilding. Classic physique, aesthetics looked good, posing was on point, the tan looked good. Yeah, it's all nice, but peeled out of his Turk mind, that's the compliment that I want to hear.
I was already at the point where like if it doesn't go my way today, I'm just gonna focus on
I mean, you still showed out.
And so here's the thing. Despite the fact he was on the side, and when you're on the side, you know, probably things aren't going so well. But he posed as if he was going to win. You never give up. And so you can see going through his posing routine, he has the thickness, the fullness. He looks good in certain poses, but he's not quite lean enough, not quite hard enough. When you're looking at Eric go through these poses, you want to be thinking, I have to look away. And trust me, when I've seen guys at their best, I couldn't believe what I'm looking at. When I see a guy who's truly ready, it amazes even me. I'm thinking, how is it possible that a human being looks like that? And so when you have a physique like that, and you have a lot of muscle, it's undeniable. And so although Eric suffered perhaps more than he's ever done in his entire life, he still could have been leaner. Telling you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. You want to hear that he was 3% body fat. He could have been leaner. See, and as he's going through the side triceps pose and so on, you do see some of the striations in the side of the quad. That is looking very lean. However, you don't see the details in the glutes. And in the obliques, over on the side, you could see crispy detail. If he's truly peeled, you're going to see etched in stone cables looking like you're playing a guitar. Cables down the side. And the hamstrings should look like guitar strings. There should be lines everywhere. As soon as you see the physique, you're thinking, this isn't a human. That's bodybuilding. And so what really stands out on Eric, it's the chest, the shoulders, the arms, the pops to the back. These are some incredible muscles. However, the overall flow of physique, trying to find those wide shoulders, the barn door wide shoulders to the minuscule waist, he doesn't have it. He has the muscle, and he is fairly close to being etched in stone, but not quite. But it's not quite enough to get him the coveted IFBB Pro card. But look at his confidence, the smile, the charisma, waving to the crowd. Excellent performance, and he should be proud. And I'm certain that all of his followers, his millions of fans, they don't care that he didn't win his Pro card. They just want Eric to be happy. Eric knows he gave it his all. He had his eyes on the prize. He gave it his best. He didn't win. And so what? Who cares? I'd rather give it my 100%, give it my all, and lose the competition than know that I didn't even try and that I won. Imagine not putting in your best effort. You should be proud of the effort that you put into anything. And so whether you're training to put on 10 pounds of muscle, that you just want to look aesthetic at the beach perhaps, or whether you want to win the Mr. Olympia Championship, what you need to do is to know that you tried your best. Did you in fact give it your all?
Obviously it's like not what I wanted. It hurts, but just provided so much clarity for me of like where my priorities should lie.
There you have it, 5th place. He says, look, this has given him some clarity. And after a few days to reflect, he posted this on Instagram.
I was so proud of the look I had. It still wasn't enough, so I've decided that I'm officially done with competitive bodybuilding. And so the goal now is to be in my best health.
And so Mike Israetel writes in his comments, the hand clap, the bowing to Eric. And so perhaps Mike Israetel should one day follow in Eric's footsteps. Great to see that in his early 30s, he's already decided, look, I'm a realist. I recognize that I probably would need to abuse performance-enhancing drugs and affect my health in order to get that pro card, especially to win an IPB Pro show, and so perhaps it's not worth it. To go through all that suffering, not being healthy, all to get an IPB Pro card, when he can in fact lift weights, be healthy year-round, and promote bodybuilding to the masses. First reaction is, damn, I'm shocked you're not a pro already, let alone still going for your pro card. Exactly. If you see this guy in person, many of you haven't seen him in person, you're going to think, how's he not a pro? And so do you really need the pro card? People already think he's a pro. He looks like a pro. And so you don't need the pro card. Keep doing your thing. Wishing Eric all the best. Interested in the best natural supplements? Remember, we're trying to do this healthy. Consider GO2 Max and Turk Builder. We also have Ecti Builder, creatine, pre-workouts, protein bars. We have everything. Code Greg, 15% off. Click the link in the description. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment to boost the algorithm. Please like the video. If you in fact liked it, watch one of those 2 bloops. And yes, the cookbooks, the Circle Diet Book, training books, coaching plans by me and my team, the Harder Than Last Time clothing line. You can get it all on the website. If you have no money, get the free diet and training program. Join the 300,000 plus newsletter subscribers. And until next time, I am out.